I'd gotten this book at a thrift store years ago. I went with my brother to a random thrift store in downtown KC, and it's called Heavens to Betsy, and it's about the origins of common sayings. And I've always wanted to read it, and I cracked it open, and I found out that it was written in 1955.
1955, okay.
Therefore, a lot of the sayings we don't say anymore.
Love it.
So not as relevant as I thought, but they're just some fun random sayings that I thought we could talk about the origins of and see if you know.
Let's do it.
So here's just a couple of them. So the phrase bite the bullet, meaning to endure something difficult or painful with courage. Like, all right, I'm just going to go bite the bullet and mow the lawn.
Yeah.
What do you think that origin comes from?
That origin probably comes from when people were up for execution.
Okay.
And it was just like, you know what? I'm going to die for something I believe in. I'm just going to bite the bullet.
There we go. Not quite, but I like that. So the origin is that before modern anesthesia, soldiers or patients undergoing surgery, often on battlefields, were given a bullet to bite down on to help distract them from the intense pain and keep them from screaming or biting their tongues off.
A bullet?
Yeah. Literally bite the bullet.
Why not like a piece of wood? Something that's not going to break your teeth.
They're in the battlefield. They got a bullet.
Oh, that's true. That is true.
Yes.
You got me there.
Allegedly.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Another one is to butter somebody up, meaning to flatter somebody excessively to kind of gain favor, get them to go along with what you want.
So you're asking me where that came from?
Yeah.
To butter someone up. Well, I'm guessing that there was a time in history where bread was plentiful, but didn't taste very good. So you'd butter it up in order to make it more palatable.
I like that, but no. So this one's interesting. The origins of this saying, butter someone up, dates back to ancient India, where religious devotees would throw balls of butter at statues of their gods as like a religious offering in return for blessing or forgiveness.
No way.
So they would throw globs of butter at their gods, statues of them. So over time, it evolved into the idea of buttering somebody up with compliments in order to get something out of them.
Can you imagine if that's one of the things God ordered people to do in the Old Testament? It was like, you got to kill 3 doves and you have to throw butter 2 handfuls of butter at the altar. That's crazy.
I know. That was a really interesting one to me. Another one is to turn a blind eye, meaning to deliberately ignore something that's wrong or inconvenient. Like you see your kid, fighting with his sibling and you're like, I'm just going to turn a blind eye to that.
Yeah. Turn a blind eye is interesting because it's already blind. Why do you have to turn it? I mean, it's probably just reinforcing the fact, like, it's like cross my heart and hope to die.
Right.
It's like, just reinforcing the fact that you're not going to say anything about what's happening or even notice what's happening.
There we go. That's pretty close. So the origin comes from the British Admiral Horatio Nelson. During the 1801 Battle of Copenhagen. We all know about this battle.
Yeah, that's where they created tobacco.
1801 Copenhagen. So when the Admiral Nelson's superiors signaled retreat via, they would hold up flags that meant different things.
Yeah.
Nelson, who was blind in one eye, held his telescope up to his blind eye and claimed he couldn't see the order, allowing him and his troops to continue fighting, and they ended up winning that battle.
No.
So he literally turned a blind eye by putting a telescope up to his blind eye and being like, oh, I didn't see you signaling.
That's awesome.
I know.
I really like that one.
That was a fun origin.
Yeah.
And they ended up winning the battle. He's like, he knew that they could do it. Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
Good one.
Okay. Being a scapegoat, meaning a person or a group that's unfairly blamed or punished for the faults of others.
Unfairly blamed or punished for the faults of others. I feel like this has a religious background. I think a scapegoat might be biblical. Mm-hmm. So maybe it's a goat that you used as a sin offering.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Pretty close.
Yeah.
So in Leviticus 16, which is a book of the Bible that Most people don't read. There was one day a year in the Jewish culture called the Day of Atonement, where 2 goats were chosen, and one was sacrificed to the Lord, and the other, the scapegoat, was sent into the wilderness, symbolically carrying the sins of the people.
Okay.
So they kind of sacrificed to the Lord for forgiveness of sins, and then they would put symbolically the sins on the other goat and just kind of send him away. So he took away their sins.
I'd love to be a scapegoat.
No, you wouldn't.
Well, I mean, they just sent him away. You survived.
No, into the wilderness to die.
Well, you could have survived in the wilderness.
Okay.
Right?
He wasn't allowed back. He was sent off.
I guess they didn't allow him back,
Right.
which is a bummer.
It's like that meme of that one penguin in Antarctica that like leaves the group and starts running
He's
toward the
headed
mountains.
Toward the mountains, never to return. Well, the other one dies though immediately.
It's sacrificed. Yeah, so they both die. Yeah.
It's a tough decision.
Yeah.
Good. I like that origin. I was close.
Yes,
I was
very close. Okay, this one was an interesting one. Feeling under the weather, meaning like you're feeling sick or unwell.
Feeling under the weather. The only thing I think of is if somebody said this while it was like bad weather out. Like I'm feeling worse than the weather right now than the
Okay.
weather is.
That's a pretty close one. So this comes from, it's a nautical term for sailors that were sailing ships. So when a sailor was feeling seasick or just sick in general, they would go below deck under the weather where they're protected from the harsh winds, the elements on deck that might make them feel more sick. So they'd go under the weather to recover. And that later brought into like meaning any sickness at all.
Huh.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So kind of sheltering from the weather, you're under it, down in below deck.
Interesting.
Yeah, recovering.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I would have never guessed that.
No, that one and the butter being buttered up.
Yeah,
were
the butter
2
one.
new ones.
Oh,
Yeah.
the blind eye one was insane too.
Oh, right. All right. 2 more. The writing is on the wall, meaning there's a clear sign or a warning that something bad is coming.
I have a feeling this came from one of the revolutions.
Okay.
So like maybe some propaganda was on the wall and it was like the people versus the current leadership of a country. So that's my guess.
Okay. This is the one you're the furthest off on.
Oh God.
So it's
Wait. I have another guess.
Okay.
I think it's biblical actually. When God wrote on the wall in front of that one guy with his finger. I think that's my real guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go. Perfect. So in the book of Daniel in the Old Testament, King Belshazzar, he was the king of Babylon. He threw this big feast to kind of celebrate like how amazing he was. And a mysterious like hand just appears and writes a message on the wall. And they don't know what it means. It was Mene, Tekel, Upsaran. So they bring in Daniel because he was a prophet, and the king's like, what does this mean? And Daniel tells him, your kingdom has been weighed and found wanting, and it's about to fall. And that night, King Belshazzar died. He was
Holy
killed.
crap.
So the writing's on the wall, it's not going to turn out
You're
good
about
for
to
you.
die, boy. Wow.
Yeah.
I was close.
You were close.
That's
the second
probably my
time.
closest one. Yeah, the second time.
All right, last one. Head on a platter. They served my head up on a platter, meaning to like deliver someone over to downfall, to punish them, to humiliate them, kind of revenge.
This is definitely John the Baptist.
Yes. There we go. So in the New Testament, during a birthday feast, King Herod promised his stepdaughter Salome that if
Salome?
yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
That
Was she good at like tasting wines?
that's funny.
Was that sommelier
Or it could be
something
a
like
Salome.
that?
It could be Salome.
Solemn?
Salome.
Okay.
That she danced for the king, and he's like, you can have anything you want up to half my kingdom. And her mother, Herodias, really didn't like John the Baptist because he's like, you're in an immoral relationship. So she tells her daughter Salome, you should ask the king for the head of John the Baptist on a platter. So Herod, he kind of felt bad about this, but he'd given a big promise in front of all his guests. So he was like, go find John the Baptist and cut his head off. And the executioner brought back John's head on a platter and gave it to her. So it's a gruesome image and became a lasting symbol of ruthless revenge.
Wow.
So if it's like somebody served my head up on a platter, like they betrayed me, they kind of did me in.
They did me in.
Yeah.
Great.
So
job
those are
with
the
that.
origins of 7 sayings.
Man, do you have a whole book of that?
Heavens to Betsy.
Look at that.
But a lot of these, like I mentioned, they're from
They're antiquated.
1955. Like some of them I was like, to walk the plank. Okay, we know that one.
Yeah.
But others like playing with loaded dice.
I know that one.
Yeah. Love me, love my dog. To tilt at windmills.
Yeah.
3 cheers and a
that's all
tiger.
I've never heard of.
I'm like, I haven't heard of those.
Yeah.
But I'll do that again in the future. What
Those
was your
are
favorite
really
one?
good. I mean, obviously, my favorite one's going to be the one I got.
Yeah.
Actually, no. My favorite one is the guy who was blind in one eye.
Yes.
That's
the
my
Admiral.
favorite one.
I liked
for sure.
that one. That was probably my favorite. The butter somebody up one I thought was
Super
hilarious.
interesting. Yeah.
That they're like, we want to win our God's favor, so we're going to throw butter at him.
Well, butter was probably more of a delicacy back then because you kind of had to have access to a cow
Right.
in order to make
and
it.
they wouldn't eat cows. They
Yeah.
would just milk them.
Just milk them.
They're sacred.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So that is the topic for the day.